I'm just going to get started. So some of you know me already, some of you don't. My name's Sarah. I'm the Director of Nutrition at BioXcellerator, and I help design, based on the latest evidence in anti-inflammatory research, the anti-inflammatory meal plan and meal guide. So yeah, I'm just going to share my screen and we're going to get right to it. Okay, thumbs up if you guys can see it. Anyone with their camera on? We're good. Okay, perfect. So I'm not able to see the chat now while I have my screen sharing up, but I will get to all the questions later. So as questions come up, feel free to just put it in there and I will answer. So a lot of these are a little bit wordy, so I'm not going to obviously read off these slides to you. That'd be very boring. But this is the guide that we give out to patients before they come down to the clinic. So basically what we're trying to do is just help people understand the connection between the foods they ate and the inflammation in their body and how that affects your cells. So anyone going down for stem cells obviously is getting, hundreds of millions of brand new cells in their body, and we want the body to be primed and ready to receive these by not having chronic inflammation. But for the average person, what that looks like is it's the same thing. We just want to preserve and protect your cellular health. So the process, like with any of my nutrition programs and clients, no matter what the end goal is mindset is the most important thing. You can get very, very excited about trying new things, and this can be an amazing journey that you undertake where you really make a commitment to your health and to trying new things. Or you can kind of see it as this burden of, oh, I have to do this because, either my stem cells or I have this health condition or I've been diagnosed with this. You can choose to make this one of the most exciting adventures that you've been on. Myself, I am going into next month, my 11th year on a plant-based diet, which was not always anti-inflammatory, but at least it started me in that direction. And over the years, I've learned about how to refine it to make my diet and lifestyle anti-inflammatory. So what is it? We're trying to prevent, or at the very least reduce, low-grade chronic inflammation as best as possible. And it's just going to give you improved outcomes, whether you're going to the gym and working out and you want to lower your inflammation, your recovery time, you don't want to be as sore, or you're somebody who maybe was just diagnosed with, cardiovascular condition, type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes. You definitely want to focus on lowering your inflammation as much as possible. So 2 types of inflammation. The first one is acute inflammation. So this is kind of, I don't want to call it the good type because sometimes it's painful, but we want acute inflammation. This is good. It means the body's working. So acute inflammation is when you stub your toe and it gets swollen, when you cut yourself and it gets swollen and is bleeding, when you go to the gym and you have an intense workout and afterwards your muscles are sore. That's acute inflammation. That's your body working. That's your immune system coming in to solve the problem. On the other side, we have chronic inflammation, and this is not desirable at all. This is an underlying condition that can be, weeks to months to years for many people. Some people, it ends up being decades if they don't change their diet and lifestyle. So this ends up being the precursor to most modern diseases like heart disease, cancer, even Alzheimer's is an inflammatory condition. So by sort of applying the principles that we teach you here, then you're going to be able to get rid of the inflammation that is not beneficial. So as I mentioned, acute is good. That's, safe, and it's healthy for you to repair yourself quickly. However, too much inflammation is not good. We do not want underlying lingering chronic inflammation. That means your immune system is always busy fighting something that you are doing to yourself, and it doesn't have a lot of room to heal and recover and energize you from, all the external factors. So how do we lower inflammation? You eat right and you move your body. You don't have to do crazy exercising. Actually, even too much exercise is inflammatory, believe it or not. So you just want to do, whatever is going to work for you. You want to exercise at least like 3 to 5 times a week in a method that works for you, whether that's yoga, running, anything really, whatever you're going to stick to. For some people, it's CrossFit. Just don't overdo it. Find what's going to work. I like to tell my clients even to get one of those little mini trampolines, like 80s style. Those are actually amazing for you. And you can bounce on it for, just 10, 15 minutes a day. And that's going to move your stagnant lymph. It's great for your cells. So the three pillars, diet, sleep, and exercise, it sounds like common sense, but actually when you look at it, a lot of people kind of seem to be letting one or two, or in some cases, all three of these kind of go to the wayside, and we don't want that. So we want to just ensure that these three pillars are intact. So diet, I'm going to talk to you about. Sleep kind of requires discipline if you're someone that doesn't have a sleep condition. Unfortunately, inadequate sleep does raise inflammation. So, for cellular health, you need to get to bed and you need to get a good amount of sleep. Not 10 hours of sleep. It's not the more the better. No one should really need more than 8 hours at the most. More than that, and you probably have an underlying chronic inflammatory condition that you need to work on to figure out why your body needs all that extra sleep. What kind of food are you eating? Are you just staying up really late? Going to bed before midnight. Ideally I tell all of the patients to try and get to bed around 10:30, at the latest 11 o'clock. Your body likes to do most of its healing in the first quadrant to first third of the night. So the earlier you get to bed, the better. And you never know, you might be a morning riser. I didn't know for all of my 20s that I was a 6 a.m. clubber, yet here we are. Now I wake up at 6 a.m. every day. So consistency is super important. That thing where we stay up till 2 a.m. on the weekends and then try and get back in a rhythm by Sunday night for the week is not healthy. It's not good for the body. It doesn't mean you can't stay up late sometimes, but like with inflammatory foods, the less often you do it, the lesser the effect it's going to have on your body. So don't just, try and throw your whole schedule out the window because it's the weekend. Stress. This is a big one. Stress causes inflammation. I don't like telling people this because then sometimes they get stressed out hearing it and that makes them more inflamed because they're like, I can't get rid of my stress. So there's stresses you can't do anything about. And those are stresses sometimes, from your job, if you can't change it or if you can't reduce any level of stress from your job, any personal life situations that people are in. Those are the things that perhaps you can't change. So, that's where you're going to do stress management techniques, breathing exercises, yoga, meditation. There's actually a lot of science that indicates even just writing down, mantras and affirmations, positive things every day to start your day and saying them over and over and over again. This actually can help, reduce your stress levels and also just help you, to live the life you want by tricking your subconscious mind into believing this stuff. The subconscious mind is very, very, very powerful, and it's constantly taking in everything we consume, even the stuff that we ourselves don't notice. A lot of people don't realize that in most of their favorite television shows and movies and stuff, you might be thinking you're watching the characters play out something on the screen, but in reality, your subconscious mind is seeing alcohol, coffee. They place all these things, junk food, all over the screen in the background, too quick for your conscious mind to pick it up, but your subconscious mind does. So we want to program ourselves with these positive affirmations and by building healthy habits so that we don't let our subconscious mind, which drives us towards these negative habits, we don't let it run the show. So eating to reduce inflammation. This is one of the easiest things you can do to reduce your inflammation immediately, besides going to bed at a good time. It just requires a little bit of willpower, but I mean, the results of making this change are pretty immediate. I've seen people turn around type 2 diabetes early stage in 21 days. So it can be very, very quick. Every bite you take is either going to feed inflammation or fight it. Not too many neutral foods out there. So this is a list of just the most inflammatory foods. So these are the ones that we really want people to, in some cases, avoid. Ideally, you don't really have any processed or fried foods, vegetable oils, things like that. And then for things like the refined grains, animal products, sugar, just most people are not going to just completely remove those things from their life. So it's about having less of them. And then when you do have them, maybe if you are having a steak, you don't pair it with fries or a big thing of mashed potatoes. Instead, you pair the steak with a big salad for a little bit more balance. I personally don't eat any steak, so it is possible to live without it and thrive, guys. But also we want to meet people where they're at and understand that most people are not just going to cut all these foods out. So the solution is now add in things that are going to help remove inflammation. One of the best things is leafy greens. This one is one that I do want everybody to completely eliminate: high fructose corn syrup. If you don't eat processed foods, you don't have to worry about it. It's only in processed foods, but sometimes it shows up on the label as fructose or glucose syrup. So this sounds like fruit to people, but actually it's from GMO corn, often from China. So you don't really want to be consuming this. You have no idea, the process or what it's been through. So try your best to avoid these unsavory ingredients if possible. Just, packaged foods. That's what's going to cause it. Oils. Oops, I skipped that. So on the left, I've got the avoid list. if you can, try not to consume those things. The more you cook at home, the more you don't have to worry about that. You're not going to buy these things, and no one's going to be like frying with GMO soybean oil at home for the most part. So try instead, olive oil, but you don't want to heat olive oil at high temperatures. It can go rancid. It's a little bit toxic. So that's something that you want to have only low temperature or raw. Avocado oil is one that you actually can use at high temperatures, or my favorite, camelina oil. It's got a really good balance of omega 3 to 6. It's got the perfect ratio, 3 to 1. So if you can get camelina oil, I know that's a little more common in Canada than it is in other places. But yeah, so avocado, camelina, and a first cold pressed olive oil, those would be my top ones. But again, limit oils very much in moderation, because oils are not a whole food. So if you can live without oil, I personally try to use very little, and I'm going to give some tips for cooking without oil at the end. Trans fats, this is another one that for cellular health, we really want people to avoid. These have kind of been demonized in the media over the last few years, which is awesome, but they focused more on the added trans fats for frying food, and they didn't focus much on the naturally occurring trans fats, which are in beef and dairy products. So obviously stay away from hydrogenated oils, but you really want to limit your consumption of beef products. Anything from a cow is going to be really high in trans fats naturally. So processed foods, they are literally designed by some of the most brilliant scientists in the world to be extremely, extremely addictive. These things are not made that way just to, to treat your taste buds with a really good flavor. It's to make you addicted and come back over and over and over again and be a lifelong consumer of these foods. Also, interestingly enough, some pharmaceutical companies also own, companies that make a lot of processed foods, and it's a good way to keep people in the cycle. So break free of the cycle. If you eat a lot of processed foods, just try and find other snacks that are just ready to be kept in your fridge so that you can kind of go for them right away. Make things yourselves. Anything you can do to just not eat out of a package. And there's lots of new companies as well that are using better ingredients. There's lots of somewhat or largely anti-inflammatory snacks at Whole Foods and other grocery stores. So we are seeing a shift. Some cooking tips. I won't read all these to you, but my favorite cooking tip is make a lot so you don't have to cook that often. I don't like cooking multiple times a day. I kind of eat raw throughout the day for the most part. I do like juices, smoothies, big salad, veggies and dip, guacamole. And so when I make a big meal for dinner, I'm always making enough to have leftovers so that I don't have to cook every single day. I don't mind eating the same thing more than once, but I know some people do. So if you're somebody who, doesn't mind eating the same thing 2 days in a row, batch cook, have leftovers, and, try to avoid going to restaurants too much. I'm kind of bad for this here in Mexico because they're so good, but you just ultimately, you don't know what they're putting in the food unless, you really trust them and you ask what they're using. So steaming, that's a really important cooking tip. So you don't really want to boil your food because a lot of the nutrients from the vegetables, for example, if you're boiling broccoli, all the nutrients are going out into the water you cook it in. So if you're making a soup, this is okay, no problem, because you're going to also consume all of that broth. But otherwise, you just want to lightly steam and not overcook the vegetables to keep as many nutrients in as possible. Steam them above the water so that the nutrients don't leach out. And, for digestion as well, for nutrient absorption, if you're eating all cooked food, have a little side salad or some little raw veggies, some cucumbers, because cooked food, cooking it destroys the enzymes, which are really important. So just eating some raw with the cooked, then you've got that balance. You still have enzymes coming in. And yeah, try to not use too many oils when you're cooking. Ideally, don't use any at all. I like to pan fry in vegetable broth. So you can just get like an organic carton of veggie broth and you just put a little bit in the bottom of a pan and you can fry vegetables that way, which is, it's really delicious and it doesn't require any oil, or the steaming method, or even you can pan fry in water actually works too. And vegetables. That's one I almost skipped over. So if you can, scrub them and get them very clean, but don't peel all the skin off. For some of them, like cucumbers and zucchini, so much of the nutrients are in the skin. So you don't want to just completely remove all of those. Cooking with herbs. So you want to add these at the very end. If you put them in the beginning, the flavor is just kind of going to go. So this is a really good way to add a lot of flavor to your food without dumping a ton of salt in. Restaurant tips here. My biggest tip is, choose restaurants that have plant-based options already. I use an app called Happy Cow. And it's a really, really good one. And it tells me all of like the plant-based type restaurants in the area. And then I kind of pick which one I think is going to have the best options. So somewhere with like salads, anything with different ethnic cuisines. So Indian food, Mexican food, Thai, Vietnamese, they tend to all have really, really good anti-inflammatory options that are very high in vegetables, which is great. So water, this is a big one because a lot of people actually walk around chronically dehydrated and they don't realize it and they have no idea. And when I tell them to actually start tracking how much water they're taking in, it's not coming anywhere near where it should, or they're getting a lot of their hydration from sometimes from herbal teas, but they don't realize those teas are actually a diuretic like chamomile or something, and they're not really adding to their hydration that way. So really keep track. You want to aim for at least 2 liters a day, a little bit more if you're male, if you're active, and that's going to help your body flush out toxins constantly. And it's really, really good for your cellular health for sure. You can tell someone who drinks a lot of water, their skin reflects it. So this is the big one that, some people really struggle with when I tell the patients, hey, we want you to, cut back or maybe eliminate those animal products. That's when people sometimes get mad at me, but there's a reason why. It's not an ideology. It's not because, we want everyone to go vegan or anything like that. A lot of vegan foods are super, super inflammatory, very, very processed. It's just because this is what the research indicates is the absolute best thing for cellular health. So a single meal of meat, dairy, and eggs triggers an inflammatory reaction within hours, and it lasts 5 to 6 hours. So for some people, this means that if they wake up and have their bacon for breakfast, they have their chicken salad for lunch, they have their, shepherd's pie with beef for dinner, their body is in a constant state of inflammation. It never has the time to actually go down. And so we are trying to encourage people to, really, really cut back on animal products and see the difference. And people who have arthritis or joint pain, they tend to be the ones that notice it right away. And they realize that, you don't have to completely eliminate these foods, but you definitely can't consume them every single day if you don't want to be inflamed, especially if you're not mindful of the source. So the big 3 endotoxins. So these are bacterial toxins, and within like an hour or less, these are in your body causing a ton of inflammation. So saturated fat is one that most people know about. It's a little bit more commonly discussed in the media. It is a precursor to different health conditions at high amounts, heart disease, for example, being one of them. And the other one, heterocyclic amines. So these are mutagenic carcinogenic compounds, which essentially means that they can cause DNA changes, and they can potentially cause cancer, especially when consumed regularly. So if you want to protect your cellular health and the integrity of your DNA, you do not want to be consuming mutagenic chemicals on a daily basis. So the higher temperature you cook the meat, the more heterocyclic amines. So barbecuing, for example, grilling with the flames, and that's not the way to go. Something like an oven baked salmon would have significantly less heterocyclic amines than something that was cooked alternatively on a grill or on a barbecue. So keep that in mind if you do still consume animal products. So that was all the bad news. Here's the good news. You can lower your inflammation with diet. If you look at this picture here, both these pictures, you see that they are so colorful and our eyes are just drawn to them. They're magnetizing. And the reason why is because we are supposed to consume colorful plant foods. That's why we see color. So carnivores and omnivores in the animal kingdom, they don't see color actually. They don't need to, because they're not supposed to be picking berries, getting fruit off trees, things like that. They need to hunt prey. They have very different digestive systems than us and very different physiology. So the reason we're attracted to this food is because this is our food. Now, food manufacturers know this and they exploit it by, putting all these junk food in bright, colorful packaging and things that are going to be appealing to kids. They're playing on our innate nature to be drawn towards color because that's our natural diet. But in reality, you want to just go to the whole food version of that and away from the processed food version. So plant forward is how I like to describe this lifestyle. It just means that your diet is going to be made primarily of plants in their whole food form. And the reason why is quite simply these foods, you can spend 5 minutes on PubMed or any of these scientific databases, and you can see that these are proven to support cellular health and to keep your inflammation levels very low. So why eat an anti-inflammatory diet? Hopefully I've convinced you by now, but if not, additional reasons that I didn't really cover: longevity. People who live in the blue zones, the 5 regions of Earth with the most longest lived population. So there's Costa Rica, there's Loma Linda, California, there's Okinawa, Japan, um, I don't know how to pronounce it, but there's one in Greece and then there's one in Sardinia, Italy. So what all of these populations had in common, even though they all ate totally different diets, was that they were all on what we would consider to be a low protein diet, which means they were eating about 5 meat meals a month and about the size of a deck of cards each time. So compared to the average person's diet, that is significantly less meat. And also what's impactful about this is that their, other nearby neighboring communities that weren't in the blue zones, they were also still eating, what we would consider high quality, free range, grass fed meats, but it didn't make a difference. They didn't have, some factory farms for most of these people's lives if they're over 100 now. And it didn't matter. The ones that consumed the smaller amounts of animal products tended to have the most longevity. Mind you, they also overall lived an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. They were passively active. They had a strong sense of community, strong sense of family. So it's about the whole package. And that's why this is what we're promoting here, is a lifestyle. So they're just so high in phytonutrients. That's why these diets work. Unfortunately, animal products, they do not have phytochemicals, they don't have antioxidants, and they don't have fiber, which are things that we really, really need to protect our cells and to live a long, healthy life. So alcohol, for some people, this is common sense. Alcohol is not good for cellular health. It does age you. A small amount won't, but if anyone's getting a stem cell procedure leading up to the procedure and, for a window of about 90 days after, we do want you to try and avoid alcohol as much as possible. It is just very, very inflammatory, and it causes premature aging of the cells, which you can see on people's skin who drink a lot. But also, if you did a telomere test to look at someone's DNA, the telomeres are our little protective caps on the end of the DNA strand. People who drink a lot have shorter telomeres, so they're aging quicker. Caffeine, this is another one that people get mad at me for, but I didn't make the rules. Caffeine, it slows down wound healing, and it's also inflammatory. Coffee beans actually are some of the most contaminated food products out there because they have very, very high levels of mold, and they need fungicides, herbicides, and pesticides more than many, many other products. So actually, for a lot of people, most of their consumption of pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides every day doesn't come from their produce. I have people who ask me like, well, I can't afford organic. Is there even a point? And then, but they're drinking tons of coffee every day. If you eliminate all of these toxins from your coffee, then you've got a lot more wiggle room in the other areas with your non-organic vegetables. That's for sure. So I mentioned skin health briefly. Some people do go down to BioXcellerator for the anti-aging rejuvenation therapies. So obviously in conjunction with that, a dietary change is going to enhance and maintain cosmetic results. Antioxidants, I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of these. Probably most of you know what antioxidants are, but they basically help you tackle inflammation inside your body, and they fight the free radicals that can throw you off and make you age quicker. So free radicals are just what is being formed in our body at all times. They're there to protect us, but antioxidants come in and neutralize them so that we don't have the lasting damage from them. We don't have DNA damage. If you don't have enough antioxidants in your diet, you're not able to neutralize these free radicals, and that's why you'll start to age quicker. So where do free radicals come from? Air pollution is a big one. If you live in a city and the air quality is very, very poor, if you smoke, or if you live in a house with smokers, or if you're constantly around people smoking, marathon running is one, believe it or not. So that's an example of too much exercise is not a good thing anymore. Alcohol, as I mentioned, toxins can come from everything from eating toxic food products with all kinds of preservatives to literally using makeup, skincare, hair products, house cleaners, things like that, where all of these toxins are going into your body and being absorbed through your skin, the body's largest organ, into your bloodstream. So be very careful everything you put on or in your body. Also, if you eat higher risk here of cellular damage and free radical formation in the body. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Tanning beds, excessive cell phone use. One thing you could do to reduce free radicals is to unplug your Wi-Fi at night. Actually, just unplug it, plug it back in the morning, and then you have 8 hours a day where you're not being zapped by Wi-Fi, which for some people is the only window in their whole day that they're not. So these EMFs, again, a lot of these are all small things, but the dose makes the poison. And when you're getting the air pollution and the cigarette smoke and the constant Wi-Fi and tons of animal fats, all of a sudden now the body is overwhelmed, where if it's just a little bit here and a little bit there, your body through a proper diet and sleep and hydration routine will be equipped to deal with it. So antioxidant rich foods, believe it or not, some of the most antioxidant rich foods are actually spices. So just adding some spices to your meals at the very end, some oregano, some turmeric is a good one, clove, cinnamon. If you're getting cinnamon though, try and get a good quality, like a Ceylon cinnamon. And yeah, you really need very, very, very little of these, and they're going to have a big impact. And then other ones that are more of, a food, acai bowls, those are very popular now, super high antioxidant, cacao, but don't eat too much chocolate because it probably has sugar in it. Tart cherry juice concentrates, which I love. I recommend that to all of my clients to take before bed. So if anyone needs recommendations there, send me a message after. Blueberries as well. If you can get wild ones, you can get those frozen at Costco or at Trader Joe's in the States really cheap. Those have way more antioxidants than the ones from a farm. So try and get wild blueberries. And yeah, astaxanthin is another one that I put all of my athlete clients on because this is the highest antioxidant food in the world. It's a seaweed. So that's a really cool one as well. This is what antioxidants do. I kind of talked about free radicals and how they come in and neutralize them and help your body remove them. And also, they help your body detox toxins. They're really good for your skin, for poor vision as well. Super important to have high antioxidant intake. Anti-inflammatory protein sources. So I told you what the inflammatory ones are. I didn't go through all of them, but my light. I'm going to fix this. You guys can still see me 1 second. Sorry. Okay, I think that's gonna work. Otherwise, I'll just do this kind of in the dark. The lighting's not so great in apartments in Mexico, so I've got one like in front of me. So the plant-based proteins that are anti-inflammatory are not GMO soy burgers. That's not anti-inflammatory, that's inflammatory. So, choosing a meatless option isn't necessarily going to be good for you if it's made in a factory and it's got all kinds of preservatives, if it's highly, highly processed and it's nothing like the food found in nature. Whereas if you get, a homemade veggie burger or one like Hillary's brand or something with, you read the ingredients and you know what they are, that's a really good choice. The basics, lentils, chickpeas, tofu, green peas, tempeh, hemp seeds, all that kind of stuff. Even veggies, they get really overlooked, but broccoli has, 5 to 6 grams per cup as well. So if you eat enough whole food ingredients, you're going to get enough protein. That's for sure. I've never met someone with a protein deficiency that didn't have every deficiency on the book. So that's something that's very overhyped, but it's not a realistic fear. I'm not going to read this whole list to you, but if anyone wants this, obviously the patients already have it, but I'm happy to send this to anyone else too. We've just got the foods to try and avoid. And then on the other side, just some better options just to level up a little bit. So food as medicine, the reasons why we're asking you guys to do this is to lower cholesterol, to reverse and prevent heart disease, obesity, all kinds of different conditions. Type 2 diabetes is a big one as well. So just put mostly plants on your plate and you can't really go wrong. That's the big ask here. Won't go through this too much, but we're at the end here. These are some of the recipes that we recommend to the patients. So chia pudding, I love to start the day with chia pudding. You can make that the night before. They're good in the fridge for a long time, like days, even maybe a week at the most. So you can make a few of these and leave them there and just have them as a really good snack. I like to top them with like a coconut yogurt, some granola, some berries. You can add different flavors. This is just how to make it. So you can put, a little bit of raw cacao in there, some turmeric, things to make it taste good. Oatmeal is a good breakfast. Quinoa porridge. This is one that is new to a lot of people. So instead of oats, if you just want something different, if you have quinoa that's already been cooked, take a cup of that and you can just put it in some almond milk or coconut milk in a pan and heat it up and serve it like you would oatmeal. And you just have a really high protein breakfast to start the day with. High protein berry mousse. This is a good one. This is so easy. I love recipes that are really easy because I don't like to spend a lot of time in the kitchen, if you guys didn't get that. So I do just take a package of organic tofu, try and get organic. And then, a couple cups of frozen berries and then a few dates. I like to blend the tofu and the dates first so the dates really pulverize and then throw the berries in. And it literally looks like a beautiful gourmet dessert and it's really good for you and super high in protein. Antioxidant smoothies, berries, greens. Whenever you're making a smoothie, you want to just put greens in it. That's a big one. Helps balance the blood sugar associated with blood sugar spikes that can come with blending up fruit. So if you don't like the taste of greens in a smoothie, if you don't want the little chunks, pro smoothie tip is you just put a little bit of water in the bottom of your blender first, then you're going to add the greens in and just pulverize the greens and then add all the other ingredients and the rest of the liquid and you won't even know they're in there. That works for kids too, if anyone has kids. I like to make these salad jars. You just want to stack them from the heaviest ingredient at the bottom to the lightest at the top, and you put the dressing in the bottom. When you're ready to eat, turn it upside down and shake it, and you've got delicious salad in a jar. Dressings, again, if anybody wants these, I can send them to you. Patients already have them. Different types of hummus. I love hummus, so good. But if you want to cut back the fat, you can do things like add in sweet potatoes and do a sweet potato hummus. You can add chickpeas and do a chickpea hummus with the different herbs here. And chickpea guac, so good. That also cuts back the fat as well. If someone is, for example, having blood sugar issues, pre-diabetic, in addition to cutting back animal fats, I also try to get them to cut back plant-based fats until they've healed as well, for better blood flow. So that's a really good option. Salads, just make beautiful, colorful salads. And this is kind of how I like to build a bowl. You've got some greens, some colorful veg, you got your proteins, some raw veggies at the bottom, like the cucumbers. And for dinner, I'm not going to go through these recipes too much. I'm going to stop sharing, but basically we just kind of want you to choose foods that you already enjoy, foods that you already eat, and don't try and reinvent the wheel. If you like shepherd's pie, look up, plant-based shepherd's pie, and then kind of, use your common sense and the information that was in this guide to find recipes that are going to be really good. So not too oil dense, nothing where you're adding sugars or anything. If you really like tacos, instead of al pastor, the normal way, make it using some mushrooms is a really good option. Yeah, so just look up plant-based versions of foods that you already eat and just be very, very mindful when you do consume animal products, where are you getting them from? I've had, clients say to me in the past, okay, so I'll just, I'll eat all plant-based at home. And when I go to a restaurant, that's when I'll have meat for a special occasion. And I actually want them to flip that. So I want people to consume animal products if they're going to consume them at home, so that you can be way more thoughtful of where you're buying them from. You can get them from a farmer's market. You can try and, get something a little bit higher quality. If you go to a restaurant margins are so thin, especially nowadays, that they are not going to be getting the most expensive or the highest quality meat products. They're just not. So, try to eat plant-based when you're out and you don't have to worry about that as much. So yeah, I'm going to answer some questions now. If there are any. How about coconut oil? Yeah, coconut oil just, it's, one of the only plant-based sources of saturated fat. So if that's the only source of saturated fat in your diet, then you're good. It also maintains, its stability at high heat. But if somebody is already on a diet where they're consuming lots of saturated fats from animal products, I don't really want them getting any more from coconut oil. Anti-inflammatory diet versus vegan, or is vegan? So a vegan diet is not necessarily anti-inflammatory, and I can attest to that. 10 years ago, my vegan diet was inflammatory. I had a lot of bread, I had a lot of noodles, I had a lot of, sugary desserts and things like that. It was still better than my previous diet, which had all those things and fast food and, so I made major improvements. But a vegan diet is not necessarily anti-inflammatory. A lot of GMO soy burgers on the market, things like that. No, that's not really gonna move the needle as far as we would like for really lowering inflammation and creating a very, very long lasting lifestyle that promotes cellular health, longevity. You know, all of this is to delay the aging process, basically, which a lot of people focus on the physical appearance for that. But, you know, I'm more concerned with what's on the inside, what's someone's cellular health like, what is their brain function like, how well is your brain working, what's your cognitive function. Those are the metrics that are very, very important to me, and that's why we want you guys to do this, protecting the brain as we age, especially with, you know, the massive amounts of Alzheimer's and dementia that we're seeing on the rise. These cases are going up and up, and that is a condition associated with inflammation. There's other factors that come to play, of course, but by doing whatever we can to protect our cellular health and to protect our minds as we age, we're going to obviously reduce that risk in tandem. So, okay. Oh, how can you get the info I'm willing to send? Oh, just email me, sarah@bioaccelerator.com, and I can send you like the recipes and stuff over. I'm happy to share them. What's your take on tofu? So tofu is fine. It's good for you. It's a good source of protein. You just need to be careful where you're getting it from. So that's one of the things where, you know, you really want it to be organic. You don't want it to be genetically modified. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about soy products and them being estrogenic and stuff. But that's not true. I'm not going to go too much into the science here, but actually they're phytoestrogens. So phytoestrogens, plant-based estrogens, they bind to a different estrogen receptor, and they're actually protective against, you know, hormone dependent cancers and things like that, which is why in the countries like Japan, where women consume the highest amounts of soy, they actually have the lowest incidence of breast cancer. Meanwhile, when these same women move to the United States or move to a Western country, all of a sudden their breast cancer risk becomes the same as everybody else's. And all of a sudden they're not consuming soy anymore. So really, really interesting amount of misinformation out there. A documentary I'm going to recommend that's really good is called The Game Changers. It's on Netflix, and they actually talk about this, and they go into the science about how, you know, it's a different estrogen receptor and it's protective. My master's thesis was actually on phytoestrogens and breast cancer incidence and recurrence rate. So I do like talking about this stuff. But I don't want to go too heavy into the science. So basically, if you have a hormonal concern, you don't have to worry about it. The amount of soy you would have to consume to even get close to what you're getting from a piece of chicken for estrogenic effects is just, the misinformation is crazy. So the estrogen in chicken, for example, is actually the same molecule as human estrogen, which means it's perfectly ready to bind to our estrogen receptors, and that can lead to hormone dependent cancers and, you know, different hormonal imbalances. It's the estrogen from high amounts of animal products. It's the same as our molecule. So if you're worried about stuff like that, then, you know, definitely cut back on your animal sources. But tofu and soy products are safe. Just make sure they're organic, because I don't think GMOs are safe because of the pesticide that's sprayed on them, glyphosate. So if anyone, you know, has done any research on glyphosate, I'm going to do a webinar on that actually, I think in the next week or two, and just talk about how that, you know, accumulates in the body and the dangers there. So just, that's one, any food that's commonly GMO, like corn, soy, sweet potatoes, wheat, these are things that you do want to spend the extra money on organic. So, okay. So question from Facebook. How long might it take on average for my body to adjust to a plant-based diet? And can I ease my way into a plant-based diet? Okay, yeah. So the first one, how long might it take to adjust? We have no idea, truly. So everybody's body is different. So physiologically, we're all the same. When people say like there's no one size fits all diet for everybody, that isn't because some of us have the physiology of a lion and some of us have the physiology of a rabbit. Like that's not, it's just not how it works. We have the same digestive tracts. We have the same stomach acid. It's more about how much damage we've done to our body at that point. So animal products are easier to absorb, basically. You can absorb the nutrients easily. Whereas if somebody has very, very damaged gut, then if their microbiome is, you know, full of pathogenic bacteria, totally out of whack, they've got leaky gut or something, then absorbing nutrients from high fiber plants is just going to be more difficult because more damage has been done, basically. So for, you know, for different people, there's different approaches into weaning yourself into a plant-based diet. Some people like to start with meatless Mondays. Some people like to start with meatless until dinner. Some people just, I mean, I just did it overnight one day. I just decided that that's what I was going to do. But we really just want to focus on foods that are going to keep inflammation down more than anything. Someone's saying, oh, I'm plant-based now and eating a big bowl of pasta every night with, you know, all that white flour and having a cookie for dessert after. You're not doing yourself any favors there. That's not an anti-inflammatory diet. So you kind of have to work with yourself and your own comfort level and do the best you can. If you're a patient that's going down for a treatment soon, I'm going to urge you to really push yourself, you know, maybe to the limits of your comfort zone to try and really prep your body for this procedure so that you get the most out of this. It's a huge commitment to fly down to Colombia, to spend a lot of money on a stem cell procedure because you need healing. So really, really dive in. But if somebody is ready to go a little bit slower and make these changes, then, you know, meet yourself where you're at, but also, you know, challenge yourself a little bit. See what you can give up. See if you really need that morning coffee. See if you really need that wine before bed. Maybe you want a tart cherry juice before bed instead. Okay, let me see some more here. Okay, would I still recommend a soy plant burger over a meat burger if someone's having a burger? So, I mean, I prefer someone just gets one that isn't super processed. You can get vegan burgers that aren't really highly chemically processed. There is a study that just came out actually that where they compared someone eating or I guess it was a lot of many individuals fed Beyond Meat versus actual meat burgers, and they measured the impact afterwards on because saturated fats, things like that, how the body fared, and they did better on the Beyond Meat. But also these are short-term studies, and I think the long-term consequences of consuming highly processed foods are not great either. So for that one, it's going to be kind of like whichever one you want, but then pair it with a salad, basically, would be my advice. Any special regards for everyday average gym weightlifters, meat, protein, amino acids? So basically the biggest thing is calories. So when men switch over to a diet that is, you know, lower in animal products and things like that, they tend to also switch to a diet that's lower in calories, which can result in weight loss, which for some people they're thrilled about. But if you're somebody who's actually trying to put on weight and to bulk up at the gym, you're not going to be thrilled. You're going to think, I'm getting skinny, what's going on? And I've taken on clients before who said that like they were losing weight on a plant-based diet and it wasn't working for them. And I started actually tracking everything they were eating and, you know, inputting it into Chronometer, which anyone can use. Chronometer.com. You sign up for an account and it's a free health and wellness tracker. So you put in all your food. I don't recommend this for most people that aren't trying to be bodybuilders or something, because I don't like being obsessive about food. I don't like tracking everything. But when you start off, it's good to kind of see what's going into your body. And some of these men don't realize they've actually inadvertently put themselves in a huge calorie deficit. And that's why they're losing their gains and they don't have as much energy. They're just literally not eating enough food. A big plate of vegetables like this can be maybe a couple hundred calories. Whereas, you know, imagine that much in oils or animal products, that'd be thousands of calories. So it's about adjusting your mindset and saying, hey, I get to eat more and that's great, but I also now need to be mindful of it. I need to up the liquid calories. Maybe I'm going to do protein shakes and smoothies where I'm going to put, you know, 2 bananas in, because that's like 220 to 240 calories right there if they're really big ones. Some almond milk, some chia seeds, a little bit of like a high quality protein powder, and all, you know, some greens. And then you just have peanut butter. Liquid calories are going to help increase that. So just watch calories if you're going to the gym. And otherwise, I mean, most weightlifters actually, if they do it right, they find amazing results by switching to an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, because they're not as sore afterwards. So they can get back to the gym quicker, they can improve quicker, they can get those, you know, gains quicker. Okay, to use an air fryer. So you can use an air fryer to reduce oils for sure. So it's still high temperature cooking. So just keep that in mind. If you're putting meat in there, you're still cooking something very, very quickly at a high temperature, but it's a really good option to make. I do cauliflower wings and sweet potato fries in the air fryer. And I actually don't put oil in my air fryer at all. It doesn't crisp up as much. So you can put a little bit in there, but I just choose not to altogether. So it's a good option for sure for things like that, but you don't want to be cooking all of your food in the air fryer. Okay, one more private message. Oh, whey protein. No, no way, no way. So whey protein actually is one of the most inflammatory foods. And also it's just not the best source of protein. So yes, it's going to make you bulk. It's designed, whey from dairy is designed to make a baby cow triple its body weight in the first few months of its life. So of course, the whey protein is going to help people with bulking, but it's also going to make you really, really inflamed. It's going to slow down your recovery. And also it is going to spike your IGF-1 levels, your insulin like growth factor 1. This is the most prominent. Oh, he sent me a sad face in the direct message. I'm sorry. But really important information. It spikes IGF-1, and insulin like growth factor is a cancer promoter. So if you have high levels of IGF-1 from whey protein and all these animal products, your cancer risk is going to be much, much higher than someone who doesn't consume those things. And so very, very important to really try and avoid whey proteins. And there's so many good alternatives on the market. Once you stop consuming dairy products, also the taste becomes like, oh, it's not good anymore. Whenever I order like a green tea latte or something somewhere, I don't drink coffee, and I get it and it's accidentally cow milk, real milk, and I can literally smell it right away. And this is something I used to consume. I used to have like triple coffees, like 3 creams, 3 sugars. It was disgusting when I was a student, and I loved that. And it's crazy how much your taste buds change, where now I can smell it and I'm like, oh, that doesn't smell good. That smells inflammatory. So, you never know how much your body will change and what foods you'll start to really like and crave when you make the switch over. So collagen. Yeah. So collagen is one of those things where kind of like whey protein. So whey protein was a waste product of the dairy industry. The dairy industry was like, we have all this leftover crap. What do we do with it? We don't want to dump it. Let's find a way to sell it to people so they consume it. It's brilliant, but it's really bad for you. And collagen is another one. Taking the collagen from the bones of animals that are often, disease ridden, they're raised in factory farms, they're fed terrible diets. That's not going to help you. What you want to do is actually prep your body to produce its own collagen. That's what's really going to work. So you produce your own collagen with silica and vitamin C, which you get from plant foods. So having a diet really high in these things, cucumber skins are high in silica. If you juice them, you absorb it even better. There's like bamboo silica drops you can take, but a high vitamin C diet, really from real food ingredients, not fake vitamin C, ascorbic acid, like the little packs and stuff. You don't want that. You want real vitamin C from whole foods. So also if someone emails me, sarah@bioaccelerator.com, I can recommend the best sources of vitamin C and stuff as well. But yeah, you want to produce your own collagen. You don't want to be intaking it from an animal. That's not good. It's a big health fad. Can any of this help with a dog's health? Yes, a dog's health. So yes, dogs also, dogs obviously have a different physiology than humans. I'm not a pet nutritionist, but I do know a lot of people who took their dogs off of conventional dog food, which is very, very toxic and inflammatory. I mean, look at it. Would you want to eat that? And they put their dog on a much more high quality blend of some homemade dog food and also some higher quality kibble. So they switched to, I forget which one it was, but there's some actual, like, there's vegan dog foods out there. Some are terrible and some are better quality. And then it doesn't necessarily mean people want their dog to be vegan, but they get the kibble that is vegan and higher quality. And then they cook the meat for their dog and they feed them actual meat and not processed, ground up. We don't even know what it is, stuff that was never fit for human consumption. So yeah, dogs, think about what we feed them their whole lives, right? It makes them age quicker as well. It makes them suffer. It increases their cancer risk. So, if that's a member of your family, then yeah, get them good food, get them real food. Boneless, skinless baked chicken. Yeah, so not trying to be difficult, just a long-time traditional meat eater. Yeah, no problem. Most people are. No, that's not being difficult. I'm here to answer your questions. If anyone wants to drop off, no problem. But I'll keep answering them as they come. So boneless, skinless baked chicken is going to be much better than something grilled on a barbecue because, we're going to reduce the heterocyclic amines by baking it and cooking it at a slower temperature. But people do tend to have a misconception that chicken is somehow significantly better for them because it's not red meat. But actually, in my days working for the Ministry of Agriculture in a different life, I can tell you that chicken actually is often one of the most problematic foods, pork being number one. If there's one meat that people ask, like, what's the one thing I should avoid? It's pork. Absolutely, it's pork. But yeah, a lot of chickens are, given very high amounts of antibiotics, unfortunately, and different drugs. They're given a lot of drugs. So chicken's not necessarily better. It's also one of the meats that has the most arsenic, and in the processing as well, often they inject it with, saline solutions and things to plump it up. So the dose makes the poison. If you have a farmer you trust, you're going to be able to get a much better quality version of that. And yeah, just, if you don't eat too much, your body can handle it, like anything that we deem as inflammatory. But if you're eating it every single day, your body won't be able to handle it. So other options as well. Seafood, unfortunately, is quite inflammatory. That's something hormonally that people should be more worried about than soy. So we have this plastic floating island that's, say, the size of Texas in the ocean, and a lot of that is plastics. And these plastics are leaching out xenoestrogens, so these synthetic estrogens that do affect hormones. And so the fish and seafood, this is what they live in. The oceans are completely contaminated. And so when you take in the seafood, you're also taking in all of these xenoestrogens. So high amounts of estrogen in fish, as well as mercury, PCBs. So I think I read it takes about 30 days to remove all of the mercury from a piece of salmon, like about, the size of someone's palm, which is crazy. And that's a result of human intervention in a very negative way. So a slightly better option would be if you can find like a trout, a river fish, that is going to have less contaminants in it, ideally, unless it's from, one of the more contaminated lakes. But so just kind of do your research and do your best. But there's no way to live perfectly in this world. Plants have pesticides on them. It's not about being perfect. We're not giving this information to try and overwhelm or stress anybody out. We're giving you this information so that you have the best information that is available out there. And then you get to choose what you want to do with it. And you get to choose how far you want to take it. If you make a 30% improvement, don't focus on the 70% you didn't do. Say, hey, I just leveled up 30% from last week. That's pretty good. And maybe in a month or a week or, a few days or a few months, you'll want to level up a little bit more and a little bit more. And gradually you'll see your health drastically improve. And that's a beautiful thing. So as much as you can, make changes and don't consume too much of inflammatory foods. And when you do have these foods, then you're not going to worry about it as much, because you know that the rest of your diet is very balanced. You're eating lots of greens, you're having lots of fresh fruits. Okay, green tea has caffeine and antioxidants. Should we avoid or reduce consumption? So green tea does have caffeine and also antioxidants. Green tea is a better option. If you're about to have a procedure soon, then yeah, we want you to try and cut back on caffeine because it slows down the healing process. But green tea, like matcha green tea, for example, it has a compound in it called L-theanine. So L-theanine actually balances out the caffeine. So it actually is quite calming, and it avoids the caffeine spike and then crash afterwards, which is bad for your hormones. So it's a much better option for sure if you're heading in that direction. If you can quit caffeine, that's great. If you've had caffeine every day for the last decade or more, don't quit cold turkey. You're going to have a really bad time. You're going to have headaches. You're going to have withdrawal symptoms. It's a drug. So probably wean yourself off of that. And slowly, if you're used to having 3 cups of coffee a day, the easiest thing for people to do is, either cut back to 2 cups and then slowly cut back to 1, or have 1 cup spread out 3 times in that day, so that you still have your same habit and it's not as much of a shock to your system, because you feel like your afternoon break is compromised and stuff as well. Okay. Any more questions? You guys can unmute yourself too, and you can ask as well if you don't want to type it. Or Andrew, if there's any more from Facebook, just direct message those to me. Nope, that's it. Okay, great. Well,
yeah, it looks like we have all our questions.
Okay.
Our questions answered.
Perfect. Great. Well, if anyone has a question later, which often happens because they don't want to ask it here, or it just comes later. Oh, there's one. Is an alkaline diet good or bad for stem cell treatments? So an alkaline diet isn't really a clearly defined thing. If I mean, plant foods, I would assume is what you mean. And so, yes, anti-inflammatory, that is absolutely the best thing for leading up to a stem cell treatment. Anything that is good for your cellular health long term is also good for your cellular health surrounding a stem cell treatment. So basically, the more of these like alkaline plant foods that you can consume, the better. That term is just a little bit muddled. I don't like to use it because it confuses people, because like lemons, for example, are acidic and limes are acidic. Grapefruits are acidic, but these things they don't have an acidic effect on your body like meat and dairy products do, and fried foods and caffeine. So, but an anti-inflammatory diet, everything, all the principles we discussed here, that is the best thing for a stem cell treatment, or for someone who never wants a stem cell treatment and just wants to improve their health and live longer and look younger and have more energy.
And catch the question, Sarah?
Pardon?
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. Please do.
You mentioned about the stem cell treatments. You
Mhm.
said it's good for stem cell treatments, meaning as in like a preparation for. I mean, obviously, a healthy lifestyle is the best. But are you offering stem cell down in Mexico, or what? I've definitely been researching them for years, so I'm curious of what you're offering and what's the best way to go
So
about.
I work for BioXcellerator. They're the world leader in stem cells, and they are down in Colombia. And so, yeah, I don't personally offer the stem cells. You'd have to connect with Andrew's on this call from the clinic. What my role is to prep people for this procedure by getting their inflammation as low as humanly possible, basically. Which has been really, it's been really fun for me. And I also get to talk to people before and after and hear about the changes in their life. And, for individuals who have been in car accidents, or we get a lot of professional athletes who have been, beaten up for decades, and to get them, to see them regaining mobility, maybe their shoulder didn't kind of roll all the way. Now it perfectly works. They didn't have grip. Some people lost sensation. Spinal injuries, discs, things like that. Those are kind of the more common ones. And so it's been really, really cool. But yeah, you'd have to go down to Colombia for that. So not here in Mexico. I'm just here because I like it here and I do everything online.
Excellent.
Oh, thanks, Naz, for the nice message. That's so sweet. Thanks for logging on. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody. If you do think of a question later, you can email me, sarah@bioaccelerator.com, and I can help you out. Or you can DM me on Instagram @Sarah Brandow, and I can help you out there too. So thanks for logging on, everybody. See you next time.